Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Truth Beyond podcast. This is episode 2, and we got a good one today. Today, we are talking about the famous Betty and Barney Hill abduction case. But before we do that, Frank, how you doing today, sir?
Doing great, my man. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, all things considered, but I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
That's good. That's good. I'm excited, too, about today. Betty and Barney Hill.
The famous abduction case.
The first abduction case.
As reported, right?
Yeah.
Like as the
It set
official
the
one.
precedence for many to come afterwards.
Many to come. Everybody's like, great idea.
You know, before we talk about Betty and Barney Hill and everything they went through, and then our own interpretation of maybe what happened, what do you think the parallels are between Betty and Barney Hill and Betty and Barney Rubble from the Flintstones?
It's a good question. Let's see. Betty and Barney from the Flintstones.
And remember the alien on the Flintstone? Do you remember that? There was that section, I think the Great Kazoo or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
remember that?
Wow.
Might not be the kazoo, but I think that's what it was called.
Right. So maybe there is a parallel there. I haven't thought about it, to be honest.
Think about that.
Yeah.
We're getting deep into the weeds of conspiracies.
Absolutely.
But if there's any conspiracy, this is what I think it is. I think Betty and Barney Rubble, maybe Betty and Barney Hill, but definitely Betty and Barney Rubble, swingers. And who are they swinging with? Fred and Wilma.
Fred and Wilma.
Think about how close they were.
Absolutely. You're right.
The little nuances. Betty and Barney named their kid Bam Bam. Oh, yeah, I bet they Bam Bammed. I bet you they did.
Oh, my God. You're right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Think about that.
Whew.
All right.
I think we're going off the rails a little bit.
All right. Reel me back in. Let's go.
All right. So to provide context, we're going to be providing really an overview to recap what the abduction looks like and what was leading up to it. But then what I think we're going to do, which is really going to be interesting, is we're going to provide what our interpretation is of the incident. So if you want to go into some detail of what the alleged abduction looked like to help us start off.
Yeah, I mean, Betty and Barney, they were a New Hampshire couple who claimed to be the first widely reported victim of alien abduction. And in September 19th of 1961, they were driving through the White Mountains and they experienced a 2-hour memory loss of missing time and later recalled taking aboard a spacecraft. And they were subjected to the old medical examinations, which if you listen to our first podcast, one of the alien species was the Greys, which were known for that. And they were actually tied to this incident.
Known for the medical examinations, the probing, as we went into very big detail.
Yes.
Yeah. Last episode.
Which was probably the most exciting moment for you.
It was. Fantastic. So the one thing before we get into it is there's 2-hour memory loss. When you first heard that, what was your initial reaction to that? Like 2 hours of missing time. Like, What would you think?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't want to say right now because when we get into our interpretation of this whole event, I think that was a major part of it, which I will talk about.
Okay, so real quick, before we get into that, my initial reaction is like, were they drinking and driving? Because the only time that I remember like having a severe memory loss is the unfortunate, and I don't do this anymore, but of driving home after I've had a few drinks and then waking up in my car and being like, how did I get here?
Did they have DWIs back then?
I don't know. Like, did they ask that question?
I
Like,
don't know.
How much you been drinking tonight?
What you been drinking?
What you been drinking?
What you been drinking?
I'm drinking the Betty and Barney Hill Kool-Aid. That's what I'm drinking.
Okay, fill me in.
All right, so let's see what that brief overview is like, because one of the things that is most interesting about this is that Betty and Barney Hill were actually an interracial couple at a time when interracial marriage was still illegal in many states, which is wild to even think about, but it was. So they married in 1960, and that was just 7 years before the U.S. Supreme Court decision, which struck down laws banning interracial marriage. So that was during that time. So they were traveling together, particularly through rural areas, which could expose them to suspicion, harassment, or even violence, all that crazy stuff that was going on back then. So the fear of them encountering hostile strangers was actually really a genuine part of their lives that they lived with daily.
Right. So let's talk about the aliens in quotations and being described by the Hills.
Yeah.
So they thought the aliens were emotionless, physically different, difficult to understand.
Before you go further,
Sure.
those three things sound exactly like how I was in puberty. But go ahead.
You're still a little difficult to understand.
I am actually.
They closely examine the couple and holding complete authority over them.
Which is scary to think about, right?
Yeah, from a symbolic perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can represent overwhelming force.
Yeah. Something that strips away autonomy and really treats people as objects rather than individuals, which is probably what they might have been experiencing at the time during that crazy time in the 60s.
Sure. I'm sure they were just always aware of their surroundings.
You have to be at that point, I would think.
Yeah. And it would cause a loss of control, being afraid, being unable to resist, having their memories obscured.
Which is a scary thing to think about.
I mean, can you imagine being physically examined without your consent?
Again, that sounds like puberty to me. But yeah, wild.
Feeling confused afterwards, which will stick with your puberty theme.
Yeah, this. You know what? Maybe I was abducted during.
Yeah. Maybe you were in the back seat.
Yeah, I might have been back there with them. So it sounds like these themes really are paralleling broader feelings that are experienced by basically them living under a system of discrimination where really the institutions of the time often were exercising authority over people's lives with little recourse, meaning that they could do whatever they want during this time, these institutions and people, and there was no recourse. They could get away with basically being prejudiced and having really bad behavior towards interracial marriages.
Sure, I'm sure Barney experienced that, and he was shaped by the pressures of being a black man in America at the time.
Yeah.
And being married to a white woman just exasperates that.
Yeah, wild to think about. Like that must have, not only was the tensions high during back then, but then for him to marry a white woman, he had to feel like there was a constant target on his back. At least I would think.
Right. And under hypnosis, Barney seemed to show a lot more stress, anxiety, where Betty was more curious than fearful when interacting with the aliens, which I find really interesting, how you could be curious than fearful if I'm being examined and tied down.
And as I think about that, maybe it was the case, the reason why she felt more curious than fearful is, she was taking a big leap based out of love, right? She's doing something at the time that was completely against the norm. So maybe she was more, her personality, she could lean into her fears as opposed to being controlled by them. So that might be the reason why she was more curious.
Speaking of curious, buddy, don't you think the Hill story plays out more like a movie with tension and suspense than anything?
Yeah, I mean, when you read the details on it, it plays out like almost like a script of a movie.
It does, which you could have alternate scripts. Okay.
Could.
Imagine plan B of the drive through the White Mountains. Oh, buddy, look up in the air. I think I see a UFO. Will you stop a woman? I've been driving for 30 miles. I am tired. No, I'm serious, buddy. Just look up there. There's shining lights following us everywhere we go. Oh, I got something. I got a UFO for you. Oh, I got a big UFO for you. Buddy, stop it. I'm serious. Oh no, I'm gonna show you the UFO. Let me take it out of it. Let me show. Oh, buddy.
So that's exactly how it happened, ladies and gentlemen. In case you wanted to know, that how it went down? I think that's pretty much how it went down.
That was the real Hill story.
It was.
And then she was, this is not going to play well. This is not going to play well.
And then they had to make up the story.
Then they had to make up a better story with, hence, tension and suspense.
Tension and
Which
suspense.
that story could have its own tension and suspense. If you
I'm
think about
sure
it.
there was a lot of tension and suspense on her part receiving his UFO.
Yes. Yes.
But getting back to it, so one of the most interesting things about this is the psychologists who viewed this case, they really viewed it through like a cultural lens and suggested that the trauma, anxiety, and stress can influence how memories are formed, which I find that to be very true. Not to get too personal, but like when personal things have happened in my life, when I think back on it, like I'm like, wait, how did that exactly happen? And for me, how I'm able to recall things is typically by sound. And I wasn't going to go here, but as we're talking about it, when my brother died, it's very foggy, but I distinctly remember the sound of the ambulance coming. In fact, when I hear an ambulance come, I always think of that scenario.
Well, your mind tries to fill in the blanks that you're foggy with,
Correct.
which a lot of their story came together through hypnosis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a question.
Yeah. Which, if it is through like a hypnosis, I mean, that's going to fill in the blanks that maybe that they were blocked out, that they were not trying to remember, or
Something
were
can
trying
be
to remember.
suggested.
Yeah. Well, another thing too with hypnosis, a lot of that is suggestive. So, hey, we're suggesting things, and it could be almost a storyline that was a symbolic framework that where difficult emotions and fears were expressed, and that's how the narrative was created.
So the Hills experience could be extraterrestrial or it could be psychological. Something entirely, two different things. What could have caused that? The civil rights movement, right?
Right. Yep. Segregation, racial conflict.
The Cold War fears.
Yeah, that was going back
The
then.
cultural changes, too. It was a very crazy time in our period back
Tension, like crazy going on between even your next door neighbor.
then. Sure.
It's just how it's
and
going.
if you think about it, back in the 50s, going into the 60s, in Hollywood, the UFO movies were through the roof.
Yeah, and even when was the Twilight Zone done? Was it done around then, or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that was big on like
Well, it was big on that, the Cold War,
Yep.
everything.
100%. So to recap, in this interpretation, the alleged abduction really becomes not just a UFO story, but more a narrative that's shaped by everything that was going on back in the early 1960s America. It reflects really the themes of fear, vulnerability, prejudice, and power that were deeply, deeply embedded in the historical moment.
Yeah, the race relation interpretation is one of several in cultural analysis of the Hill case. It doesn't disprove or prove the Hill's account, but instead it examines how personal experiences can be influenced by the broader social environment in which they occur.
Right, which is a very unique way to look at it.
Speaking of unique, why don't we look at an alternative hypothesis of ours?
Yeah, let's do it.
And that is that the Hills were manipulated through an MK Ultra type of operation. So the Betty and Barney Hill case was 1961. It's regarded as the first famous alien abduction story. However, through the lens of the Cold War intelligence operations, it could be interpreted differently.
Yeah, and for those who are not familiar with what Project MK Ultra was, is first, did you know that MK and MK Ultra stands for massive knob?
Which you are sporting right now.
This is true. Actually, it's a technical term I believe the CIA used. But what it was MK Ultra was an illegal, which is wild to even think about. We all have heard of MK Ultra before, but it was illegal. It was top secret human experimentation program that was conducted by the United States Central Intelligence Agency. That's right, baby, the CIA. And that was from 1953 to the early 1970s. So the primary goal was to identify and develop drugs, which is wild to even think about, drugs and procedures capable of altering human behavior and coercing confessions through mind control.
Which that timing fits the height of MK Ultra.
It does. Yeah.
So the Hills experience was 1961, right?
Right.
Okay, so during this period, let's think. CIA MK Ultra program was actively researching hypnosis, memory alterations, sensory deprivation, psychoactive drugs, and behavior manipulation.
Wild to even think about.
Yeah.
And the government agencies were conducting numerous classified experiments on human subjects, many without informed consent, just like puberty for me.
Just like puberty, which is probably today's sub-theme.
It is.
Well, much of that program remained a secret until the investigation of the 70s revealed its existence. So rather than extraterrestrials, the Hills have encountered an undisclosed intelligence operation.
Which is very interesting to think about, because when we were talking about before about the missing time, right? 2 hours of missing time, that's actually consistent with drugging or hypnosis.
Well, yeah, they had the fragmented memories,
Yep.
which they had to go to hypnosis to put everything together,
Right.
Their confusion,
Yep.
vivid dreams.
And then their later recollections emerging only under hypnosis. So that means when they were hypnotized, all this was coming aboard. So the interesting thing about this is that critics of this note that these features are also consistent with sedation, dissociative drugs, induced amnesia, and hypnotic suggestion.
So I love our theory with this. My only concern / question is, how did this happen in the timeline of them traveling through the White Mountains?
Good question.
So do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, maybe they were, it's interesting. Maybe they were, now that you say that, maybe they were, instead of them being abducted, they were kidnapped.
Yeah, or maybe it didn't actually happen in the middle of them driving. Maybe that is something that was
Interesting. It was planted.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that I like that. That's an interesting
But one of
theory.
the things that Betty spoke about later, she said after the hypnosis that she was having conversations with these aliens. And some of the alien conversations were just odd. The questions they were asking, she would ask them something and they would ask her, what is yellow? Yet they would recall other things in our culture that they understood, but they didn't understand what the color yellow was. And they said that these aliens were wearing suits. Okay.
Suits.
Yeah.
So suits like business suits?
Well, that's where I was kind of going. How do we know that they weren't drugged? They see these figures. It could be the MK Ultra
Right.
representatives.
Maybe
for
these,
lack of a better word.
these CIA guys were just wearing suits with big masks on their head.
I don't even
pretending
think
to
they
be
were wearing
aliens.
masks. I think that was just something that came up afterwards. To explain
Interesting.
it.
Wow. Yeah. So that's,
I
if
mean,
they're wearing suits, I mean, why are they wearing suits? Why would an alien be wearing a suit?
right. Exactly.
You know, getting the best from Tom Ford and trying to, spending $5,000 to $10,000 on a suit. Hey, you
Well,
like
if they're
my suit?
drugged up and they're in a hypnotic state and they're being tested on,
Yeah.
doesn't that make sense that they could come away with this?
Yeah, absolutely. And, if hypnosis can produce false memories, that means things could have been planted. They could have been suggested.
Well, these memories, if you recall, did not emerge immediately.
Right. That's right.
And that's how it was developed.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Through the
right.
hypnosis.
Yeah.
So that, to me, raises the question, how much was recalled or reconstructed?
Right. So if they did have memories planted in them, I mean, it's and that's in that scenario, it could increase confidence in their memories. Be like, yeah, absolutely, this is what I experienced while they're being under hypnosis.
Right. I believe it was the psychiatrist Benjamin Simon who used hypnosis to recover their memories.
Yeah, and he reported believing that the Hills had experienced a psychological real event.
Which could be the MK Ultra event.
Right. But he was saying, hey, it might not necessarily be a literal alien abduction. He considered Betty's dreams to have like influenced the narratives that later emerged under the hypnosis.
So we know that the government wasn't really too crazy about biracial marriages.
True. Right.
So wouldn't this be something that could just throw everything off?
Maybe it was something that was a planned idea and they were targeted and they didn't really even know it.
I think they were definitely targeted.
Yeah. Regardless, I mean, they would be targeted by aliens or MK Ultra. There was a target on their backs. Yeah.
Which is true. The Cold War context. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So back in 1961, the Cold War was intensifying.
Right.
Hence the Twilight Zone from our earlier conversation.
Right. Everybody was scared. They had no idea what was going on back then.
Psychological warfare research was a national priority.
Right. Yeah. So the intelligence agencies were exploring methods of influencing and really how people would have their perception and the behavior on certain things.
Right. So if an experiment happened to study stress response memory or hypnosis, isolated motorists as the Hills on a rural highway could theoretically have been an attractive subject for them.
100%. Because if this is something that, hey, they're going to be out in a rural area, hey, man, that's exactly
Well, nobody's going to miss them.
Yep.
Right? Nobody's going to miss them at the moment. They're traveling.
And who else is going to verify where they were and what's going on if they're just driving in the middle of the night? Who else? There's no other witnesses there.
Nobody. Well, they said they had the 2 hours
right.
of unrecalled time.
Right.
Yet they were still traveling.
Yep. So what happened in those 2 hours?
I don't know.
So, I mean, you can look at it as the alien narrative that may have just been an interpretation. So what they described was unusual humanoid figures, bright lights, medical examinations, and telepathic communication.
That lines up right with the MK Ultra stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So,
humanoid figures, right?
Yep.
Not to cut you off.
Yeah.
If they're drugged up, everything looks
wild
and
disfigured, and you're not figuring out what's going on.
Right.
And bright lights, I mean, if you're drugged up and you're in a hospital bed, you wake up, everything's
or they could be in a dark room with a spotlight on them as they're being experimented on.
Also true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, you're right. So any skeptic could argue that these elements would resemble either medical personnel, protective clothing, experimental procedures, altered states of consciousness, all what the MK Ultra was experimenting on back then.
So rather than literal extraterrestrials, the alien imagery could have been the brain's attempt to interpret fragmented memories after trauma or manipulation.
Yeah, especially if they went through something traumatic, and they were going through things traumatic, as we know, like what was historically relevant. They were going through things that were like traumatic in that scenario. So maybe that's the brain's way of just trying to piece things together.
Now, I know there's no evidence of this theory of ours, but there's so much that happened in MK Ultra that wasn't recorded or was destroyed. You can't discount it.
No, absolutely. And everybody has heard of MK Ultra, but we don't know like what is actually happened because everything was destroyed. It was one of those things, sweep it under the rug. We're not going to talk about it. Let's get rid of it.
Let's move on, folks. Let's move on.
That's Uncle Bob that we don't talk to anymore.
Uncle Bob made another appearance.
He did a lot of probing. We don't talk to him anymore.
He's going to be our reoccurring character.
Yes.
This episode is Uncle Bob and Barney. So the cultural reinforcements.
Right. So their story, the Betty and Barney Hill's story, became highly publicized and influenced later abduction reports. Honestly, it's like where
It's a blueprint.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. The perfect word for it. So if their memories had been shaped by dreams, hypnosis, and public discussion, those themes could have spread culturally, creating what you exactly just said, a blueprint for future reports. So people are inspired by that. And even if people are obsessed by it, like if they're obsessed by this story, which we're doing a podcast episode about it, maybe someone has a dream. Maybe someone has, an intense dream where they have an experience because they've been obsessing over it.
So after all the abduction stories with Betty and Barney Hill, 60s, way through the 70s, people were being abducted. And then it just stopped. So you notice there's so many different people that claim to have been abducted in that time period.
Right.
But then later on, you don't really hear about that anymore, do you?
No, you don't. Like, it's a one-off, but it's not like repeated scenarios.
I think of it, well, the technology is different now. We have iPhones.
Yeah.
There's surveillance cameras everywhere.
There's so much to debunk certain things. Right. So there's so much out there right now.
Well, did you hear that story that happened a few years ago in Miami about the mall?
Oh, yeah. Aliens? My brother was there, actually. Yeah.
Was he really?
He
during
wasn't at the actual
mall.
But it's right down the road from where he was.
So we have people that have cameras. Everybody's got cameras.
Yep.
There's surveillance cameras in every store, in the hallways, everywhere. Yet we couldn't catch an alien in the mall.
No. My brother said he wasn't there at the scenario, but people were coming. I forget where he was. He was like out at a bar or whatever it is, and they were coming in and talking about it. And he said the people seemed legitimately freaked out. So he has no idea what was there, but he was saying people seemed like, he was like, I have no idea what it was, but people seemed scared. So whatever it was, a projection or something, it freaked out people.
I would have been pulling out my camera on that one.
Yeah, why don't we have any camera?
We have nothing.
What happened?
Nothing. Not one thing. Which leads me back to the 50s, through the 70s. There was no camera. So it's just your word against everybody else. Believe me or not.
I hate the fact, Frank, that these stories are always come down to that. Not always, but it always seems like it's, well, the video footage is kind of grainy. It's kind of blurred.
It's 2026. It looks like it's 1956 with this camera.
And now it's always based down to my personal experience of what happened. Most of these stories come down to.
They do. Going back to the Miami story, why wasn't one thing, just something caught on camera?
Either it's all made up or the government went and cleared everybody's cameras and they searched through everything because they've got their eyes
Since
on
when
us
has the
all.
government been that thorough and good at things?
No,
so I'm going to throw that one.
They run the DMV. They run the
way.
DMV. So whenever it says the government is behind things, I always go to the DMV. I'm like, what actually could the government get accomplished?
You're number 108 behind the Grays.
Yeah, exactly.
So that definitely didn't happen.
No.
So the weaknesses of our, MK Ultra theory would be no documents, like I said earlier.
Right.
Link Betty and Barney Hill to MK Ultra.
Yep.
No known witnesses place intelligence personnel on the scene, but would they anyway to begin with?
Right. And no declassified records that describe an operation resembling that the Hills experience was. And like we talked about before, the MK Ultra records were extensively destroyed because Uncle Bob was doing things that he shouldn't have been doing.
They didn't want to leave any gaps.
No gaps.
No pun intended.
No pun intended at all. But also the absence of evidence is not evidence of such an operation, which people tend to jump to conclusions nowadays. Oh, because there is no evidence, it means it's been deleted.
So after this whole conversation, what's your take? What do you think about the Betty and Barney Hill experience? Do you think they were abducted by aliens? Do you think our MK Ultra theory? Do you think it was maybe hypnosis and suggestive?
So my takeaway is this. I think something did happen to Betty and Barney Hill, We don't know what that is. But I believe something did happen, whether it was an argument, whether they were drinking, whether it was an alien abduction or MK Ultra, something did happen. This is
What's
my
your gut
personal
instinct,
belief.
though? If you had to pick something, what would it be?
I'm leaning more towards the MK Ultra. I mean, listen, I want to believe, like we talked about before. I want to believe that there's aliens. But this lines up so much with how things could have been planted, especially in a very sensitive time, that they might have just been susceptible to things that happened with a government operation. That's what I'm leaning towards. What about you?
I also think it's MK Ultra, some type of MK Ultra operation. I think that just makes the most sense. It lines up with that part of our history. I would also have a hard time believing afterwards Betty was discredited because she would say really crazy things in the 70s. She would say at one point, she said that she was chased by an alien or UFO and it shot laser beams at her car, which is, yeah, I don't believe that for a second. She also thought that she would accompany people on UFO trips and would label everything, including streetlights, as alien ships.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was happening in the 70s after Barney passed away.
Gotcha. Oof. Yeah. So when you hear
So
that,
she could have influenced Barney too with her imaginative stories.
right. And he could have been like, yeah, for sure. Absolutely, woman. Whatever you say. Now, when's dinner going to be ready? He could have been agreeable with her. You never know.
You never know. You never know. Maybe he was afraid. He was just like, whatever you say.
Whatever. Yeah. I mean, hey, if my wife's telling a crazy story, I might be like, okay, yeah.
You don't want to be
say.
on the end of that crazy stick. So.
Yeah.
The MK Ultra hypothesis offers a speculative, human-centered explanation for the Hill's experience. It suggests that the reported missing time, fragmented memories, and later hypnotically recovered narratives might be explained by psychological manipulation, hypnosis, drugs, or covert experimentation rather than extraterrestrial contact. However, this remains conjecture. At present, historical records provide no direct evidence that Betty and Barney Hill were involved in or targeted by MK Ultra. Wink, wink. Just as it provides no definitive evidence that they were abducted by aliens. Both interpretations could go beyond what the available evidence can conclusively establish.
And I think that is the best way to wrap it up. So, everyone, if you're getting value from these conversations, you're enjoying it, and you want more episodes like this, the best thing you can do is hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever app you're using, Apple, Spotify. It really helps us reach more truth seekers like yourself.
Love to hear from you too. So
yeah, leave a comment. Let us know. Hey, what topic would you like us to explore?
And that should do it. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Until next time, truth beyond.